Grammatical cases are used to distinguish the different roles of a noun and an idea. For example, here's a statement. The library has good books. The word library is the subject of a verb phrase, but the word books isn't. Books acts as the object of the verb. Library is in the role of the nominative case, and books is in the role of the accusative case. Most languages that actually mark cases don't have that many different cases, usually just enough to distinguish basic function in a phrase. Most Western European languages only have cases expressed in or with their pronouns. For example, in Spanish, there are 3 different first-person singular pronouns, yo, me, and mi, that correspond to 3 different English first-person pronouns, I, me, and my. However, in Arabic, an a sound is added to the end of every regular noun to put it in the genitive case. There are languages with far fewer cases, and there are also languages with far more cases. In Chinese, I, me, and my are all wo, but in Hungarian the suffix ig is attached to form the terminative case, declaring that something is as far as the affixed noun. There are a lot of cases altogether in human language, some of which are common and others of which are really rare. Some are concrete while others are rather abstract, depending on the context and language. Now I'm going to list them all, and it is going to be fun, and conlangers can feel free to pause the video and write down the cases that they want to use. The first category that cases are put into is the most basic and fundamental, and therefore the most common. These describe a noun's function in a phrase and are called morphosyntactic alignment cases. The most common is the nominative case, which is used to indicate the subject or agent as well as the experiencer of a thing, as in like, she paused. The complement or opposite of this is the accusative case, which represents the object of a transitive verb, or the patient. There's also the absolutive case that defines the subject of an intransitive verb and the object of a transitive one, or at least that's what it does in Tibetan and Basque. In Inuktitut, the absolutive case is very similar but can also be used to define the instrument of an activity. In most other languages, it's also used to tell that the subject is an involuntary experiencer, like when a door opens. This is a good example of how some cases tend to act differently in different languages, simply because when a language develops, nobody sits down and says, okay, it'll be nice and helpful if we could develop these specific cases for these specific functions. It just comes to be that nouns that are the subject of a verb, and similarly, in order to clarify and distinguish that they are the subject within the specific grammatical context of that language. Also, like many other aspects of a language, the free variation among the vast number of speakers makes it difficult to pin down what a case is exactly. Therefore, approximations are used so you can understand just what the general concept of its usage is. But back to the absolutive case. It has a complement just like the whole nominative-accusative relationship. This case is called the ergative case, and it represents the subject or agent of a transitive verb, but not of an intransitive verb. Classic Mayan and Inuktitut have ergative-genitive cases, which function both as the subject of a transitive verb and a possessor. Cases that describe method include the instructive, which answers the question how or defines means, the instrumental, which specifies what was used to do a thing, and the instrumental cominative, which can be found in Chuvash, Hungarian, and Tlingit, which specifies what was used to do a thing and to describe accompaniment. Other morphosyntactic alignment cases include the objective, the oblique, the intransitive, and the pegative. The objective case defines both the direct or indirect object of a verb. The oblique is even broader, functioning as a basic all-around case. The intransitive exists in some of the languages of the Caucasus in order to show that the noun is just the subject of an intransitive verb. Pegative case only occurs in the Tlapanic language of Mexico and names the agent in a dative construct, which means that if he gives me the book, I am the receiver, and he is the giver, and he is the pegative. There are 3 semantic cases that don't fit into any other category. The partitive case gives quantity, the prepositional case provides the object of any preposition, the final one is the vocative, which is used to address people, like when you say, hey Benjamin Lee. There are a few cases that describe the state something is in, like the abessive, which describes the lacking of something. In Finnish, raha means money, and rahatta means without money. Puhuma means speaking, and puhumatta means without speaking. This is also called the privative. The adverbial case describes something as being something else, while the comparative case describes something as being similar to something else. The equative case does almost the same thing. The essive case means as something else. The essive modal case describes as a thing, but specifically in terms of the quality of being that thing. It gets weirder with the excessive case, which marks a transition from being the thing in question. There's the orientative case, which means that something is turned towards the inflected word, while the revertive case means something is against the inflected word, like physically. The complement of the excessive is the translative, which means that something was a thing but has now become the inflected noun. A lot of cases have basic prepositional-like functions. There are some locative cases, which I'll just give pictures of instead of explaining each one. There's the adessive, the apudessive, the inessive, the interative, the simple locative case, the pertingent case, the subessive case, the suppressive case, the ablative, the delative, the elative, the initiative, the allative, the illative, the lative, the sublative, the terminative, the perlative, the prolative, the prosecutive, the vialis, and here's an organized chart that classifies the 16 important ones, and there's also a temporal case, which isn't really locative, but it serves as a temporal location, so it fits here. The last category is relation. The ablative case marks all sorts of indirect things. The aversive case describes avoiding the inflected noun or even fearing it. The benefactive case means that it is for the benefit of. The causal case logically defines the cause. There is a cause-final case in Chuvash and Hungarian that describes the efficiency or final cause. There's a cominative case that tells you if you are in the company of something or someone. I am with a dog. The dative case conveys any direction or movement or action towards a thing. It often works to define the indirect object of a verb. The distributive case is basically the word per, while the distributive temporal case defines how often something happens, like when you say something happens monthly or every hour. The genitive case symbolizes ownership. It is mine, it is yours, it is his, it is ours, it is the puppy's. The possessive is not just abstract ownership. It means that something is in the specific direct ownership. The complement of this is the possessed case, which is when you are owned or had by somebody else. The ornative case is more like the instrumental case, though it doesn't mean the inflected noun is being used, it just means that something is equipped with it for the purpose of maybe being used at some point. This case only exists in the Dumi language. The semblative case also just describes similarity to something and only exists in the Wagiman language, and the associative case means that something is along with something else while the action is being carried out, as opposed to just existing with or alongside another thing. Those are pretty much all the cases that exist. Now, some of these have other names, but these are the ones that are most commonly seen. Also, as I said before, some of these have different purposes depending on the specific grammatical and language context. For example, in Arabic, the genitive case functions a lot more like the dative and actually can't be used when the possessor is a pronoun. Don't get worried, you'll probably never encounter most of these cases because, well, there is just no scenario in which a majority of them are relevant. It's just fun to use big words. Photosynthesis.